Hey, well, welcome to the Life After Ministry podcast. We have a unique and special episode here. We wanted to talk through from the people who do pastoral transitions all the time, the three of us that really started it with Bill Tom, and my name's Matt Davis. I'm here with Noe Rivera as well. So the three of us are really the instigating factors in all of this and get to really be the ones that meet with the different churches and ministry groups that we are interacting with and get to distribute care in lots of different ways. But we've seen 2024 has really been a year of transformation and challenge. In many ways, there's been a lot of hope. There are pastors and leaders that we've worked with. And what we find is that, unfortunately, this is just a thing of life, right? Transitions are an inevitable part of life. And if you are part of the kingdom of God, that there is no exception there. And how we navigate these can determine not just the future of individuals, but the health of ministries. And so I know we've all told our stories a little bit, so I don't want to jump into the big version of all of those. But Bill, when I say that we're the instigators, really, Bill, you were the instigator of all of this. And I'd say a couple years into this, has your heart changed, or maybe how has your heart changed for people who are in transition?
Oh, gosh. If anything, my heart's really expanded. I mean, as we really delved into this space and began really actively engaging with pastors and churches all over the country, or even a few outside of the country, we just began to realize just what a huge need there is for this. So, yeah, just feel really blessed that God's really highlighted this upon us, and that we're, enabling ourselves to do something about that and really augment the church, whom we love.
Yeah. And Noe, coming through a season of COVID, and I know the words anxiety and depression have been on the forefront, and people have been trying to figure out, what am I doing in my life and what's happening? But what do you see in the ministry world and some of the people that we're working with? This is an obvious statement, but pastors, people in ministry, leadership, they're not immune to some of these things that can hurt our souls.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking as well, is that all the regular struggles that everyone is dealing with around the world and here in America, ministers aren't immune to that, and especially their families. I think they're not only dealing with their own pain of even post-COVID and still even just our healing from the COVID years, but also their families went through things. And so it's not just a solo, isolated unit of just only the pastor. It's the whole unit of a family, and that really impacts the pastor as well. So there's much more work to be done right now, and in a way where I think we're just even starting the healing from the COVID years, and ministers are starting to talk about their needs, I think, a little bit more openly.
Yeah. So I'm primarily, within our team, working with pastors in the coaching realm, asking questions about where they're at spiritually, what their life is like, and it's not just that process of coaching is not just about pushing someone forward and saying, here's where you need to go, let's focus on next steps. But we also want to be able to create some space for them to hear God's voice again. And it's unbelievable. And I remember this, like being in ministry and having to come up with messages all the time, and you're in front of people that most people think that as a pastor, of course you hear God's voice all the time, over and over again. And you can actually go for a long, long time and do very, very well in ministry, and unfortunately not hear the voice of God. Now, I would suggest doing it the other way, where we're actually always creating space to do that. But man, there's some people that are coming out of that season and trying to figure out, what am I doing? What's going on? And I just need to hear. They get desperate to hear the voice of God. And so we get to have some of those incredible conversations. But Bill, the other really big pressing question that it takes place, it's not just about finding their relationship with God again, but they actually have to go to work. They have to find that next job. What are some of the things that you're hearing? What are some of the concerns that they're dealing with? How are they trying to figure out? And what's that process look like?
Yeah, so a lot of pastors that we talk to, there's a syndrome that they're experiencing, in that, all I have is a seminary background. I've been on the pulpit, heading up a church for all these years, really haven't done anything else. How much of this is really transferable? The reality is they've got a ton of transferable skills that are really desirable by various organizations. And what we do is that we provide a lot of assessments to really break down and get some clarity as far as the gifts and talents and experiences that they have that's been imbued upon them upon their journey. And by having this clarity, we can then identify which are transferable and what kind of alternative roles that they have. And we've been doing a lot of this. I mean, with some folks, we help them actually start a separate ministry upon themselves. Worked with a number of pastors who really had a passion upon people like themselves, people who have been struggling as pastors, and it's a silent struggle. So we've been able to do a lot of work in providing that clarity, and in doing so, hope in the future in the terms of alternative careers that they can be able to evolve to. And then we help them identify more practically what some of those opportunities are.
Yeah, one of the most read blog posts on our website is exploring alternative careers after ministry. And so we have probably more than almost as much as any other page on the website. That there's a lot of people that are asking that question, and they're doing that either on the outside or after being let go from ministry, or they are on the inside still saying, let me out. And I just remember one of the emails that we got as somebody who contacted us, and the first two words just said, I'm done. And I laugh, but it's actually not that funny. It's kind of sad, but we see that there's a struggle inside there, and they are trying to figure out a new way. It doesn't mean that they've stopped loving Jesus. It doesn't mean that they hate the people that they're working with, but there just becomes a point where it's time. And the hard thing is that we know that in Christianity Today, they put out this year, they said it takes 12 to 18 months for most pastors to find new employment after leaving ministry. Bill, one of your stated goals when we first started this thing was we'd like to cut that in half. How do you think we've been doing in that process?
Gosh, when I think back on the various engagements, being very metrics focused, on average, people that we've been engaged to really help out in this specific area, by churches as part of their transition process, we've been averaging around 4.5, 5 months for them to actually identify and acquire that next role or position. Our goal when we started this was, we saw surveys of about 12 months, and it sounds like it may be getting worse here. But our objective was to really cut that process in half. And it's not just finding a job, but also get them on the path of healing, because there's so many things that they're dealing with. And that's why, I love our team. We're multifunctional. Each one of us has an area of expertise, and, we bring all these services to bear to surround the pastor and their family in helping them heal and find their next step in the vocational journey.
Yeah. And with the healing piece, Noe, you're a licensed marriage and family therapist. You are a former PK. You are a missionary out in the field in another land, and have come back. But that emotional, relational struggle that leaders face, I often say, and I'm not the therapist here, but that when there is a death, it's not just the death of somebody that brings a lot of the trouble and the grief, but I call it the second death and the third death. It's the family member that didn't kind of line things up for their family, and now there's arguments with people in the family over the will and all these other things. But I think that even in a loss of employment, or you're leaving a community, you got fired, you have to leave, whatever those circumstances are that got you out, that's the initial, it's the first death, but there's all of these ripple effects. There's the grief. And I had somebody tell me at one point, they said, that grief is like the tides, that some days it's low tide and some days it's high tide. Sometimes it feels like a tsunami and you have no idea where it comes from. But I'm curious what you see, because I think, when we say like it takes like 4 months to find a new job, it's not like you just apply and 2 weeks later you're working somewhere else, unless, grabbing a Starbucks job or something like that. But like even those stages of grief, Like, I think that like first month, I don't know what that stage is. It's just kind of like settling in, like facing reality. But what does that look like? And why does it take a little bit of time to work through all of this?
It takes time because the human heart is, it's not in a box. The human heart and our emotions, our inner world is very complicated and complex. And it's the beauty too. I think of creativity and art. I think that's what makes art and creativity so special is it is kind of, it's not in a box, and you can mold it and make it according to the beauty that you see in it. And it's the same with a human heart. And so, grieving and loss is part of transition. And typically the first stage, the Kubler-Ross model might say that might be the shock phase of just like, wait a minute, is someone just even in shock? And we see that with pastors we work with, is they might be in that place of just, I think I'm in shock that I'm leaving my community, or they're leaving me, their family going through that. And so there's a negotiation that's constantly happening of where am I in my grief? And I kind of put it in two boxes here, two stages, that we have a grieving, but we also have a gaining. And the whole process overall is the growth. It's the growing pains. Letting go of things is really difficult, but because we serve an amazing God, we not only let go, we end up gaining things. But that whole process of understanding, what am I gaining and what am I losing? There's growing pains there. And, we have a 100% rate of connecting a grieving pastor with a counselor. We haven't had one person yet that we have not been able to say, you know what, we will help you find someone, or we will get you someone, or who's in your network, we will connect you. And the success rate that we have of, finding a job, Bill probably has a really difficult job of, helping someone find a career or another job or placement, and it's amazing that it takes 4 to 5 months, and we've really cut that down. But our ability to find a counselor, we can do it within a matter of days and weeks. And I think that's really important for pastors in transition, because their heart needs help right away and their family needs help right away. And not to beat a dead horse here, but we're finding the more that we're working with pastors that it's not only them, it's their family. And in fact, sometimes the family stresses and the family grieving that's happening is sometimes even more impactful. That let's just imagine a pastor gets a new job. They're sitting at their new job. But if their heart is still hurting, they can't focus. They can't be present in their job, have excitement in their job, or their wife or their spouse or their husband is still struggling. And so that really is the hope. And I think we're seeing that more and more, that we're not only helping the pastor, but their family as well through the whole process.
Yeah, we've seen how a well-handled goodbye can strengthen a culture, and a poorly managed transition can sow seeds of division. So we have it as our mission statement to multiply, not divide. It's the hat that I wear. I've seen you guys wear it on occasion too. And that message gets out, right? That the church is really good at hello, and we're not so good at goodbye. And so how do we actually change the culture, and how do we actually do something that is different, that's going to meet this need that continues? And I'm also just curious, Noe, just from a perspective gain for me, is I heard this statistic one time that doctors die early, like medical doctors die early. And you would think that with all that they know about the body and health and everything else, that they're actually the ones that take care of themselves the least. And the people that we have coming in, if your picture of a pastor who is in transition already or seeking transition, if you're thinking that this is the guy or the girl who is standing in front of the congregation delivering just awful messages and they have no people skills, the people who are calling us, believe it or not, I remember one we had this year that he called and said, "My success is killing me. I can't keep up this. It's killing not just me, but it's killing my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids." How does that work? And is this true? Like, are pastors not paying attention to their hearts, like we're asking people to do every single Sunday from the pulpit?
Yeah, I have a term that I use for this in ways I think it relates really well is silent sufferers. And pastors and ministry leaders can be silent sufferers, that they don't have spaces to talk about themselves. And so even though it's such a helping profession and a career and a calling, which is amazing, but at the same time, if they themselves do not have healthy outlets on an ongoing basis, their pain and their struggles can really turn inward. And, we have a statistic from Barna this year that said about 33% of pastors are considering leaving ministry this year because of that isolation and that stress. And so there's this silentness and this hiddenness to a pastor and ministry leaders, their pain. And that's really, I think, a place where the church can do a lot better. And I think we are doing better, but there's a lot more places to grow in this so that pastors do not have to suffer in silence.
Yeah. And Bill, pastors are not lasting in their position as long, right? Lifeway research said just this year, the average pastoral tenure is 3.6 years for senior pastors. How do we preserve this, right? Because we're not in the business of, we're not the ambulance chasers of the ministry world. One of the first questions we ask in any engagement is, have you done everything that you can to try to salvage this position or gain health, gain perspective? What does that look like? We're always trying to work ourselves out of a job, because the goal here is not to build up Pastoral Transitions. The goal is to build up the body of Christ. But what's the broader workforce impact? What does that look like?
Yeah, the experiences that we have with pastors is that they feel that when they walk into a position, they feel like, this is it, and they love it. They've acclimated to that. The reality is that every position that they've ever been at, it's really a temp position. Nothing lasts forever, and certainly 3.6 years. If anything, I think maybe that's shrinking over the years, and perhaps it's an indication of the culture and the various challenges that pastors and churches have been required to navigate over the past number of years. So the reality is that we love to be able to work with organizations and helping them realize that, this is part of the church evolution, and it's better to, from a cultural standpoint, to prepare yourselves to be able to embrace these things and be able to do it positively as part of your culture, as a reflection of your values and the biblical love that we're all called to extend to every one of us, including our enemies, much less pastors that may be transitioned out. As far as working with the pastors, the reality is that I think that we need more marketplace disciplers out there, and pastors are pretty well equipped to do that. So what I share with a lot of pastors that we work with is that, yes, you may be a church pastor now, but the transition is not just to a for-profit, organization, but rather the perspective is that you're transitioning to be a marketplace minister of the gospel, and you do that with the work that you're doing. We're going to help you identify what that work is, what some of those vocational paths are, but you are still a Christ representative, an image bearer of God. And in doing so, it helps them really keep tethered to their identity, prevent any significant spiritual deconstruction, which unfortunately we've actually seen.
And Noe, why is it that in these transition seasons, I understand we got to feed the family and keep the lights on and pay the bills, but there is this piece of our hearts and the healing piece that we push down the road and say, I'll take care of that when we stabilize. And then we just don't ever come to it, right? We've put off some of that. And I think that you have pastors that they're in that season right now, that they're looking at their life and saying, well, this is a busy season. Like right now, I've got like 3 Christmas Eve services, and I got, all of these other pieces. And so why is counseling always the thing that just gets pushed down the road? We kind of kick that can down the road a little bit more.
Yeah. There's a vulnerability piece. I think that when we potentially think we're about to open up our heart to some pain or some struggles, it can almost feel pre-overwhelming. Like we know something in us is telling us, if I open up the floodgates, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold back this dam of water that's about to come. And so I think that there's a lot of pushing back what probably does need to be addressed. And, in healthy counseling, we're trained to actually not completely open up the dam for people. You actually want to make sure that they have the grounding tools and the regulation tools that they need in order to allow the dam to be opened little by little. You don't want the floodgates to overwhelm them. And I think there could be a misconception from pastors of like, well, I don't have time for the counseling, or it's not my top priority. But yet it's probably simmering under the surface, all of the things that are needed to be discussed and talked about and healed, because it is appearing on the surface. You just don't know that yet to identify how this is appearing on the surface. But yet that's what counseling, we are trained to help with that. Like, actually, I think I'm seeing a pattern in your life, or I'm seeing a behavior, or I'm seeing a way of living or operating. But I think this is coming from a deeper place. And what if we actually take the time in the moment to heal from this deeper place? You might see the transformation on the surface that you're actually desiring. So I think there's an acceptance that is needed of it's okay to work on your stuff during the process, during life. And pastors are usually considered, they have it all together. They are the answer boxes for people. But giving pastors and ministry leaders the permission that they too also need help. They too also need to talk about their underlying, under the surface areas of life. And they're just as deserving and needing of it as anyone else.
Yeah. When we're not attending to our souls, the kingdom suffers when leaders burn out, right? When they sin their way out, and you see the loss of hope, you see abandonment that's taking place, and we see that, and we actively want to fill that gap and want to bring healing. We want to ensure that every transition, we actually have a positive outlook. And I tell people all the time, we are not trying to make transitions or hard things easy. These things aren't easy, but there's just a good and healthy way to do this, and there's a very divisive and difficult way. And if we can actually infuse love and grace into the process, then we've done what the Lord's asking us to do. And what's crazy for me is, we've been at this for a couple of years. And when you first start something out, we all have experience in our own individual areas of expertise, but we're a new ministry, essentially still a startup. But we had a moment where we were meeting up, and I just said, guys, we're doing it. Like, this is actually the thing. Like, we're meeting with people. There's seasons of overwhelm because we're busy. But at the same time, in those seasons, we get to stop and say, like, we're doing the very thing, and we're changing the conversation about what this looks like. And so I'm excited about what's coming up. I'm not excited about lots more transitions in the church and people in pain. That's going to be an inevitable part of what we got going. But there is growth that we're seeing, and that's something to be excited about. Even just this thing that we started, this podcast, had no idea whether anybody would listen to the smallest niche in the kingdom podcast ever. And we're over 50,000 people who've downloaded and checked in and listened, and so we're excited. There's already upcoming episodes that are in what we call the hopper, ready to go. And some of the people and the conversations that we get to have are unbelievable. So I'm really excited about continuing to have that conversation, some of the relationships, some of the conferences, some of the material that we're talking about, these connections. Like, honestly, if we never had another pastor that we were helping, but we just helped change the way the church thinks about transitions, I would say mission accomplished, right? This is not to build up some massive ministry. I would like to actually work our ways out of a job, but we have the human element. But I'm excited about some of these things. Bill, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to in the career space and the conversations that we're having?
Yeah, there's really twofold. I mean, it's like I say, we just start to scratch the surface, and all of a sudden there's an outpouring that comes out. I mean, even though we're in year 3 now, it's we're growing by 300% year after year. And the good news is that we get to be able to serve churches and Christian nonprofits in this area as well as, working with pastors that are in the process of letting go. But we also have served so many pastors that have already been let go, and they're hurting, and they don't have a sponsor. We have the privilege of just signing up to so many of these individuals and just helping them to heal them, to come alongside of them in the area of transitions. Where we developed some workshops. One is in the area of to a mass of pastors to essentially guide them on a step-by-step how to navigate their own transition. But more importantly, also have developed some workshops working with churches such that, as I mentioned earlier, transition is going to take place. It's part of life. And having been able to work with some organizations, be able to help them identify a succession culture where it's expected and you prepare for that. And in doing so, you get to do it in a really positive way, and that gets baked in the DNA. So just really, really excited about these possibilities and really having voices that in the space that really haven't been there before. So, I love what we do. I have done a lot of things in my life, but there is no role which has been more gratifying than what we're doing now. And praise God for that.
Yeah, amen to that. And Noe, you're finding yourself in some conversations of thought leadership and even the psych community and coming around a table. How is that looking in some of these conversations that you're having?
Yeah, I mean, mental health is becoming more and more accepted as a topic within the Christian world, and specifically within the pastors and ministry world. And so I think that's something exciting to look forward to in 2025, is it's still growing. And I almost see it as an acceptance of getting louder and louder, but like a loving louderness of the conversation, that mental health treatment, emotional wellness is good and okay for those in leadership and ministry leadership. And it's not a shameful exercise. I'm excited for even this to expand culturally into different cultures, such as Latino culture, Asian culture, that sometimes there can be the more, let's kind of handle things a little bit more behind the scenes. And there's something exciting about seeing different cultures come out and say, actually, this is good. This is good for all of us and the church body as a whole. Excited to join. We're going to join Biola University and their Common Table initiative, and bringing around from the whole country, just really pivotal and tip of the spear people in the space of integration of ministry leadership, psychology, and mental health treatment. So we're going to be a part of that coming up in the beginning of the year. And then continuing to see just the development of, I think what we're noticing is testimony, I think, provokes new testimony. And so, for instance, the more pastors that we can help in mental health treatment, they then can shout that from the rooftops to their fellow pastors and their fellow ministry leaders. Like, hey, actually, I went through counseling and it's good and it's okay and it helped my family. And actually, here's a referral. And, Matt, you've done that a few times. I've done that a few times of like, hey, here's a great counselor. I know this from personal experience. I've seen counselors myself. And so the more that we can make this a testimony that God works through this space, I'm excited to actually see that more and more in this coming year.
Yeah, I personally feel that we all need counseling. We're all broken individuals. So amen to that.
And there's some of these, opportunities. Noe, you and I were invited to be part of the Church Mental Health Summit this last fall. And, just that this conversation is happening, not that mental health is this thing out there, but the God who knows and wants to restore and transform our minds and our hearts, that he very much cares about all of this. And we're excited. One of the things that we have coming up here in January is working with Jenny Catron, and she's just written a book, partnered a bit with the John Maxwell leadership crew, is on their podcast, but she wrote a book called Culture Matters, and that's releasing early February. But she's having the Culture Matters Summit that's taking place January 23rd. It's free. It's a free summit. And we'll be doing a workshop and session and talk about the missing link in considering our culture, right? We spend so much time on the front end of, we want to welcome people in. I remember we created welcome boxes and we had our very own like kind of coffee mug with our, logo stamped on it and, welcome to your first day and we're going to take you out to lunch. And then we want to have fun during the rest of that time, create a positive, really great workplace. But when it comes to that transition season, it's don't let the door hit you on the way out. And so how do we actually change that? Because that undermines the culture. So we'll be talking about that. So make sure you sign up for that. You can go to just Google something like Culture Matters Summit, and I'll put a link to that in our notes here. But, we're just asking this question. Imagine what it would be like. What would it be like if churches, nonprofit organizations, missions agencies, Christian-owned businesses, Christian higher ed, what if we approach transitions differently? What if we did this with intentionality and care? Because honestly, these are the times you could be soaring high as the number 2 in your organization, even the number 1, and feels like sometimes the rug gets pulled out from underneath us. So any parting words before we kind of bring this to a close? Bill, anything that is sitting heavy on your heart that we want to get out? I know that we have some real fun places and things to do to be able to share this message.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Gallup does this poll on a regular basis in terms of identify what really motivates employees to stay. And I think the most recent 2024 poll says 87% of employees are less likely to leave when they're connected to their organization's culture. The stat has just been resonate over decades. I mean, I recall a poll that they did, and they asked people what are the main things that keep you tethered to your job, and salary compensation was number 3. Number 1 was culture and having an environment where they're understood, they're heard. And our vision is for churches to be able to have that, because what we're finding is that unfortunately this is an area that's really been under addressed, and we're seeing it in the form of pastors being let go and being so hurt and just broken division within the church. So I'm really excited going forward into this next year to be able to speak into that space and to really help augment the church and helping leadership really reflect the love of Christ in all that they do and have that come out in their corporate culture.
Yeah, and Noe, you talk to people on a daily basis who are facing some kind of crisis situation, great loss in their life, in a variety of things. And you're not just working with pastors, you're working with all kinds of people. But, we get to be communicators of this message that the kingdom is full of second chances and new beginnings. And why should we never give up hope in these times when we're distressed?
We should never give up hope, because the living God, the Christ in us, is alive and well. And sometimes that gets clouded over, and we have the dark night of the soul. We have the foggy days. We have the wilderness, but that's not our home. God has taken us through the wilderness, and he wants to walk us through the fire, because he knows we have destinations to get to. And we feel that deep within all of our souls, I think, and deep within our spirit, that there's always something more. And even this earth is a temporary wilderness, and we get a heavenly body, and we get a heavenly communion with the Lord. And so there's more, there's freedom, there's hope. And I just want to speak right now. I just feel a pressing to speak to pastors or people that are listening right now, and to say, you matter, your tears matter, your brokenness matters, and there is hope, and there's healing for you, and you deserve it just as much as anyone else. And there is life on the other side.
Love it. One thing that is great, none of us knew each other when we first started this thing, and I can call you guys friends, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for our heart and position, that we've never turned a pastor away. We never will. And sometimes that comes at personal cost, but we're happy to step into that. But if you're listening, I'd ask you to do a couple things. Number one, would you just share our ministry with somebody? We want to be able to bring healing to the church. We want to bring healing to individuals who are in a place of, I don't know what I'm going to do next. If you're part of an organization that has a board, which if you go to church or if you support a nonprofit, they have a board. It's one of those real fun 501c3 things that we have to do with the government. But I find that, I think we've all found that boards are oftentimes incredibly ill-equipped to be able to deal with some of the situations that they find themselves facing. And that doesn't make them bad people or have bad motives. It's just, man, we haven't done this before. We could use some help. And so, one of the things that we're going to be doing and have already done in some places, we find that just boards and elders, they don't have... There aren't elder conferences, although there's an exception. We just found the first one, and we're going to be speaking there in California this spring. But other than that one exception that we found, there's no gathering place. How do elders become elders or become even better elders, right? And really have a sense of their job description and really look at that. So we're going out and helping churches to ask some of these essential questions that will help bring formation to their congregations. And so if you're part of a church and maybe you go on a retreat annually, or maybe you just want to gather everybody for some bagels on a Saturday morning and spend a couple hours talking about, well, what is it that we're doing here and how do we do it better? How do we prepare? How do we protect? How do we build a culture that's healthy that we can actually prevent? So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing all throughout this next year. We just want to, if we could actually cut this off at the head and really build health from the beginning, it starts with really great leaders. And so that's one of the things that we're doing. So share that with your board, and we're happy to come out. Just contact us through our website or talk@pastoraltransitions.com. But the other thing is that we take on people. What is it, Bill? Is it like a third of all the folks that are coming through our doors? We're helping.
Actually, it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, in terms of actual engagements that we have, it's over half.
Okay, so There you go. Bill's the charts and numbers guy. So so we take on, and that's not the first question that we're ever asking is how much money do you got? But there are hard costs to some of the services that we offer. And so we do absolutely everything that we can. But thankfully, man, there's been some great people that have stepped in and have been able to give. And so you can go on our website, whether that's your church, your organization, or you individually, to be able to go on our website and you can hit the donate button and you can support a pastor who's in transition. You can support a specific pastor, and your church could come around somebody and you can say, we don't have the funds to be able to do this, but we can crowdsource this and we can help out, and we want to be able to come alongside. And what greater way to be able to say this, to be able to say, well, the church didn't have money, but the church had money, right? The church, and we got to come around and we're going to help out. So you can go to pastoraltransitions.com/donate. Just hit the donate button there. And hey, we just want to say thank you. We're grateful. And as we're going into the holiday season and the new year, we just want to say thanks for your support. Thanks for listening. Share this, get the word out, and let's do transitions better. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to the Life After Ministry podcast. The Life After Ministry podcast is really an outgrowth of the work that we're doing at Pastoral Transitions. We are serving ministry leadership as they care for departing leaders and their families. We call it Kingdom Outplacement, and it's a comprehensive roadmap for navigating ministry terminations and transitions, but doing it with love and grace. Now, overwhelmingly, we are getting a lot more leaders who've come out, who've been fired, who've been released from their positions, and they're still reeling and they're hurting and they're trying to figure out what's next, but they don't have the financial support to get the services that they need to walk that path. So we've started recently a nonprofit arm of what we're doing at Pastoral Transitions to enable people to partner with us in helping ministry leaders transition to what's next. It really feels like uncharted territory for a lot of people when they're leaving their role in ministry. It's not just a career change, it's a shift in everything in your life. We want to invite you, if you have a heart for outgoing leaders and for pastors, maybe they're going back into ministry and maybe God is leading them into something else. When you are supporting the work that we're doing at Pastoral Transitions, You're helping to provide personalized support for pastors and their families who are in that season of transition. And we help to foster communities of love and grace and encouragement in these challenging seasons and give them steps to navigate with clarity and confidence. So we invite you to join us. You can go to pastoraltransitions.com and there will be a donate button along the top and you can join us in this. We appreciate it. We love these people and we want to be able to care for them now and into their next season for whatever it is that God has for them. Thank you for listening to the Life After Ministry podcast.